everybody. Welcome to the Sci-Fi Sistas podcast, where we give you our point of view. I'm Tamia Harper, and I'm joined today by my sister, Fran T.
That's right, y'all. That's right. Hello, everybody. Tamia, what's happening?
I was waiting for it. What's happening, Fran, is it's a good show. Well, we hope it's a good show. We hope you guys enjoy it. We think it's going to be a wonderful show because it's a topic that all the sisters have talked about before. And we're missing Sister Yvette today. Hey, Yvette, we miss you. And hope you're having fun out there. So we wanted to talk about this word that Gina Yashari likes to throw around for us that makes us smile all the time. We want to talk about the word woke. And we want to talk about quote unquote woke trek. Right. Wokety woke, 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 woke. And, I feel like, I feel like we as cool ass conscious people have let these conservative folks kind of get away with this not shenanigans, not in a good way, of like trying to mislabel our word. This word has a long history in Black culture and has now taken on a larger meaning. But I feel like when people started to say it pejoratively, like, oh, it's woke. And then people started to respond to their accusations about something being woke. Like, I don't feel like we as a collective community responded in a way that was really like standing 10 toes down with it. I feel like people sort of backed off from it and like, well, what we mean by woke is X, Y, and Z, and started explaining ourselves instead of being like, yeah, it's woke, dude.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Sure do.
Yeah. So, that's one of the reasons why, like amongst ourselves, we've been talking about this a little bit. And why I've been talking about it a lot more. Like I'm not going to let people take our word and turn it into something else. Right. Like, go ahead.
No, I was agreeing with you. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
It's we can't have nothing.
So true. So true. I mean, I'm just looking at like, as we record this recently, there has been this whole issue about Vogue calling an afro a cloud bob.
Oh,
What?
I want to take a pair of pliers and pull somebody's tongue out.
A cloud bob. I was like, these people have lost their minds.
It's just like back when Bo Derek wore the cornrows.
Oh my God, in that movie 10.
Yes. And I'm like, what I saw some kind of thread where they was talking about different hairdos and everything. And they put her up there to represent cornrows.
I remember that. I remember we were all like, what? What the ever loving? Right.
Okay, so I went off on that. So of course I did.
So of course you did. The outrage is real, but like we're saying, there's a long history of cultural appropriation and other types of appropriation that is not cool, right? So we wanted to look at this term woke and give a snippet of a little bit of its history for people who are not aware, because this term goes back. I mean, if you just go to Wikipedia, you will get a full history lesson on the word woke. But I'm going to give just a little bit of a synopsis of its definition via the NAACP. And then we want to talk about how this word is applied in our trek. Because right now we're still fighting these people who are talking about Star Trek got woke. and new Trek is woke.
Got woke.
Right?
Star Trek been pissing off bigots since 1966,
Right.
okay?
Can y'all hear my finger snaps?
1966,
Right.
mid-century of the
Mid-century.
1900s.
We will say this, and I say it unequivocally and say it really loud for those in the back row who to hear that Trek has always been socially conscious, politically relevant, and unapologetically progressive.
Yes.
Loudly, unabashedly progressive. So, get it straight, y'all. Get it straight. This is nothing new for Trek to be pushing boundaries and to be considering the rights of all human beings or all sentient creatures.
Mhm. Mhm.
You
Mhm.
know. So I want to read this wonderful piece that the NAACP did. This resolution that the NAACP did in 2023. They made this resolution. And if you don't know, if you're not familiar with resolutions, it's like you see it in your legislature. You have a lot of whereases and stuff, and it's a declaration of sorts. I'm saying like this is where we stand, or this thing is important, right? So the NAACP resolution reclaiming the word woke as part of the African American culture. And this was from 2023. Whereas Black history is a critical aspect of American history and has shaped American culture, including the evolution of language, and whereas the words wake up and woke have served as a call to action as conveyed by social activist Marcus Garvey, who stated, "Wake up, Ethiopia, wake up, Africa," and the Negro mine workers who in 1940 issued the statement, "We were asleep, but we will stay woke from now on," in advocating against discriminatory pay. And whereas the term woke was first highlighted in the 1962 essay, "If You're Woke, You Dig It," featured in the New York Times by Harlem based writer William Melvin Kelly, who documented the cultural appropriation and distortion of language, resulting in certain idioms being abandoned by their original Black creators. And whereas the term woke has been similarly misused, as traditionally and white focused media have reframed woke as trendy new slang, eroding its cultural connection and separating the term from its historical grounding in social justice. And whereas 6 decades later, anti Black racists have engaged in a similar exercise of cultural appropriation to weaponized and misdefine the term woke, as evidenced by the Stop Woke Act, specifically targeting the teaching of American history and Black educators. And whereas Black educators are more likely to teach subjects that incorporate an inclusive history, an inclusive view of history, and legislation like the Stop Woke Act threatens the free speech and livelihood of teachers and the quality of education received by all students, most recently students in Florida. Therefore, be it resolved that the NAACP affirms the term woke and its historical connection to Black history, Black liberation movements, and social justice. Be it further resolved that the NAACP, through its units, encourages a historically accurate and correct use of the term woke when its misuse is identified. Be it finally resolved that the NAACP condemns cultural appropriation, misuse of Black idioms, and specific efforts by anti Black racists to distort and redefine the specific term woke.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. That's power to the people.
That's right.
Yeah. That's a beautiful statement, don't you think?
Beautiful, gorgeous, eloquent, and true.
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
Okay.
So you guys can find that online if you are looking for that. If you'd like a rundown, like to see it yourself or print it out or anything or use it in your socials. I thought it was pretty cool. And, and I love, I learned a lot like researching to do this, more than I thought that I knew. I mean, more, yeah. I mean, because I really thought that I knew what I was talking about. And I was like, oh, I just learned a whole bunch of stuff, But, for this discussion, for our Star Trek episodes, we're going to, it's a little bit broader definition of the term is not just particularly pertaining to us as African Americans. You know, it's a broader social justice terminology of woke that we're looking at. Right, Franny T?
Exactly. And I might add, I just want to add this because there was an anthem for my generation, you know,
Mm-hmm.
back in 1975, a song written by McFadden, Whitehead, and another guy that I can't really, Kostrad. Okay, another guy. They wrote "Wake Up Everybody,"
Mm-hmm.
and
Wake
that
up,
was with
everybody.
okay.
That's all I'm gonna do. Because
Oh,
I don't want that because I don't want to get
that's right.
I want to have to pay royalties. We don't have that type of money.
We ain't got to do it.
Y'all can
So,
go find it from that.
and that was with the Philadelphia International Sound that was all the rage back in the 70s. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I had to get that in there. So
Yeah.
wake up, everybody.
Wake up, everybody. So now we got the foundation laid. Let's get into the Star Trek. Let's get into the Trek of it because, as we said, our Star Trek has always been woke, right,
That's
Fran?
right. That's
So,
right.
in this discussion, we're not going to do like a top 10 or anything. This is not that deep, y'all. We're just going to talk about a couple of episodes, that we found particularly interesting and woke to us. And, we really would be interested in knowing from you guys later which episodes do you stand out to you, because we're not even going through all the series or anything. And I think Fran and I both have selections from legacy Trek, from the older Trek, and not so much from the newer Trek, because the whole purpose is to demonstrate how this has been embedded in our Trek ethos from the beginning. So Fran is really covering a lot of the beginning. Who's your first one, Franny T?
My first one, what I'm doing is mine's are all TOS episodes because in honor of the 60th anniversary. And that's where I started looking at track, as you all know. But I do remember this episode, and the name of it is Let That Be Your Last Battlefield, Season
Mm.
3, Episode 15. Remember the two aliens that brought their conflict aboard the Enterprise? They were black and white, literally split down the middle, black and white. Arguing about some, you know, superficial stuff. As Kirk came to find out, he said, "Well, he's this, and he's that," and Kirk says, you look, you both, you look alike to me." So Belly says, "What? I am black on the right side."
Mm-hmm.
And listen to the verbiage. That verbiage, I believe, was intentional. Black, right. I am black on the right side. And then we kind of noticed because, I really hadn't noticed it either because,
I hadn't either. When I first saw
little.
that episode, I was like, I don't understand what's happening with here. Like, what
Yeah,
are these people tripping over? Like, they both
they
look
both-
exactly the same.
yeah, what the heck? So he says, I am black on the right side. Consider the verbiage, y'all. It was
Mhm.
intentional. All
Mhm.
right. Now that was in season 3, episode 15.
I remember watching this. The one person was black on the right side of his face. The other guy was black on the left side of his face.
Mhm.
And I mean, I saw this when I was super young. I was a child, and even a child got it. Like, oh, like the color of our skin. We're talking about black and white people here. And, And like the fact of the matter is, like, Kirk is like, you guys are like literally the same race. And they're like, no, you're not.
Oh
You know,
no.
I mean, that was season 3, but it was such a like, such a clear message. What year did this one? Do you know?
What year? It was 1967.
1967 when
Mhm.
this one came out.
Mhm.
1967, to be making a statement about how there is no difference between us was still a highly radical position to be taken.
Mhm. Very much so.
You
On
know,
TV,
on TV,
for the
right?
nation and some of the world to see
Mhm.
and hear.
Yeah. It was a big stand. Like, so, that's a huge one. That's a huge one that's at the foundation of the all of Starfleet, because in Starfleet everybody is coming together. All these different races, all and species are coming together
Mhm.
to work. When in our country, Fran, when you were coming up, people were looking at you like you weren't even a human being. The people are looking at me today like I'm not a human being.
Mhm.
And just because my skin is darker. I
Mhm.
mean, it's the most insane shit I have, like, I mean, still, like, it still boggles my mind.
Mhm.
The ways in which we find as human beings to dehumanize other human beings.
Mhm. Mhm. Oh yeah.
Hmm.
Okay, now Tamia, give us one of yours.
Okay. I think I'll start off with one of my. I'm not going to start off with one of the obvious ones here. I'm going to go to TNG, season 2, episode 9, The Measure of a Man. For those of you who maybe haven't watched that yet, um, Picard must prove Data is legally a sentient being with rights and freedoms under Federation law when transfer orders demand Data's reassignment for study and disassembly. Like, this is a classic episode and one of my all-time favorite episodes of Star Trek, period, like ever. And one of the reasons that it's one of my favorites is because um, of the conversation that Picard and
Gannon.
Guinan have in yeah I'm sorry, that Picard and Guinan have in 10 Forward, at the bar. And, Guinan says these words. Um, Consider that in the history of many worlds, there have always been disposable creatures. They do the dirty work. They do the work that no one else wants to do because it's too difficult or too hazardous. And an army of datas, all disposable, you don't have to think about their welfare. You don't think about how they feel. Whole generations of disposable people. Now, before we get to Picard's next line, what do you think of immediately when you hear those words? As a Black person hearing those words, what does that say to you? It says slavery to me. Like, that's immediately where my brain went.
Mine
Y-
too.
Right, because we were considered cattle. Like, in the type of we were considered objects.
Mhm.
We were considered property. People were buying and selling human lives. And so before we even get to Picard's response, and Picard's next response, he says, "You're talking about slavery." And she goes, "I think that's a little bit harsh." And I think she says that, like, more challenging. That's the way I read it, to challenge him to really think
Oh.
through the
Mhm.
process. And he says, "I don't think that's a little harsh. I think it's the truth. But that's a truth we have obscured behind a comfortable, easy euphemism, property.
Hmm.
But that's not the issue at all, is it?" And I love that this whole episode is talking about self-determination. And, we're seeing it via data. Sorry, I had to throw a Pulaski moment in there because
Hey,
it's
okay.
season 2, because it was season 2.
Yeah.
Uh, But no, we're seeing this happen through data, but really, I love the fact that it's really tackling the this issue head on. It's a beginning of a conversation that we're having, and in no unequivocal terms, they're saying no, this is absolutely not right. That all sentient life should be respected. I think the hurdle that they were facing in this episode was to be considered sentient, and uh who's it? Ain't I a woman? Like, don't I too bleed? Uh, was it Fannie Lou Hamer?
No, that was oh gosh.
I know,
Just went
but
blank. It'll come back to me. I
yeah.
oh God. Damn. I should know this off the top.
Sojourner Truth.
Exactly.
Thank you. My brain just went.
I
You
understand.
know,
Mine
I
did.
mean, right. So, like, it's just another. Her speech is just another example of us as human beings trying to prove to hateful people that we are actually human beings. And,
Stop the madness and call the law. Please don't.
what do you think about that episode?
Oh, I loved it. Because there are times when I remember sitting down, looking at TV. In this episode, when she said what she said to him, slavery immediately came to mind before he could respond when she was talking.
Mm-hmm.
She's talking about slavery, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And, it was deep. It was deep. And that was written by who okay, now you're gonna go blank. It was a woman that what,
It's Melinda Snodgrass.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
Snodgrass wrote her ass off
She did. She did.
with that
Mm-hmm. And she had to fight to get that episode out because it was a courtroom episode,
hmm
and Mr. Roddenberry was not a fan of those. So it was originally like, so anyway, yeah, I thought it was pretty
That was
cool.
one of the
So,
best episodes,
mhm,
of Star Trek.
yeah, I
Mhm.
agree.
Yeah.
It's in my personal top 10.
hmm
Yeah, yeah. So back to you. The tennis ball comes back to you, Fran.
Okay. The next one is more of it's not an exact moment. It's more of the whole genre, not genre, the theme, I guess I should say, of the episode, and it's called Court Martial,
Mm,
Season 1, Episode 20. So Percy Rodriguez, who is a Black Canadian, you know, he played the Commodore that was in charge of Kirk's court martial, he had been accused of killing one of his crew members.
mhm,
A whole different story, but he had to go through a court martial. And Percy Rodriguez was the Commodore. He was Kirk's superior. Now remember, this was in 1967. And this was 4 years before an actual Black Commodore, first one in the history of the United States, came 4 years later in
mm.
1971.
Oh, wow.
He was Vice Admiral Samuel Lee Gravely Jr. Star Trek had the Black Commodore, the HNIC.
Mhm.
I'm not going to explain that. In 1967, 4 years before it became true in the United States.
Okay, now.
And Percy Rodriguez was there with his handsome self.
All right, now. See, I love that.
In
Yeah, he was
that,
handsome. Oh, my
yes,
word.
he was. His presence was commanding.
It was. Oh my God. If y'all are folks who are not that into TOS, like check out Fran's suggestions because you're missing some fine people in
Yes,
that TOS. Like
yes.
Dr. Daystrom. Oh,
Oh,
I about fell out my chair.
oh, Blacula himself.
Mm,
William Marshall.
Blackula.
William Marshall.
Mm,
That voice too. Daystrom
yes.
Institute.
Yes.
And that's another thing. The Daystrom Institute is named after this black scientist.
But see, that is a well guarded fact. Like if you're not paying attention, nobody calls it. That's another. Nobody calls it out, right? Because we're
Mhm.
supposed to be post racial in Star Trek. Well, I
Mhm.
ain't post racial here, and I'm telling you, I was. I mean, it was a couple years ago when we were doing our show, and I found out that I was like, "Oh my God, Daystrom was black," because I had never watched that, really paid attention to that episode. It was like I had no idea the Daystrom Institute was named after a black man. Like I was freaking out.
I
Yeah,
think me and Sabrina told you about that.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
we was like, what?
I was like, wait, when,
Yeah, yeah.
how? Yeah. So I mean that's cool. Like in court martial, like this is one of those moments where we get to see the representation.
Mhm.
It doesn't have to be an overt statement, like with Uhura. You know, we get to see her on the bridge every
Mhm.
time. It's like all threaded through
Mhm.
the DNA of Star Trek.
Mhm.
Yeah. I love it. That's a really good one for exactly that reason.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
I had heard that, and of course, I did research on it. I'm like, 1971, 4 years later in real life.
Mhm.
So,
Well, I want to talk about one that it's a two-parter. And like again, like I'm saying, like I'm not doing these ones that are completely obvious to everybody. The thing is, like trying to do a show like this with Star Trek, like there's so many to choose from. I didn't choose like anything from Voyager because just simply because I don't know Voyager as well, you know, off the top of my head, I can't like knock out Voyager episodes. You know, I'm still like rewatching a lot of Voyager this year and being like, oh, yeah, this was good. Oh, man, that was good. You know, I forgot they had as many good episodes as they did. Like Voyager was tight. I didn't give it enough credit all the time, but it's no DS9, but you know, it's what is.
that's right. That's right, sis. That's right. It's no damn
It's still
time, but it has its moments.
it has a lot of good moments, you know. There's a lot of good moments, you know. Not everybody can be DS9.
That's
Don't
right.
you don't need to hate. But this one, speaking of DS9, is a two-parter from DS9 that I love that I thought was doing a really good job at trying to call attention to and bring some social awareness. And it's past tense, parts 1 and 2 from DS9 season 3, episodes 11 and 12. And that's when um, Cisco, Bashir, and Dax get trapped in the past in San Francisco. And during like the one of the darkest moments, they call it in Earth's history, Cisco has to risk everything to make sure that the Bell riots happen and reach the conclusion that they're supposed to reach. And so what happens is that Cisco and Bashir end up in different places from separated from Dax.
The two
And I
grand.
thought this and I thought this was a perfect way to tell this story because Cisco and Bashir end up in like a ghetto. It's called a sanctuary district. And you're like, what the hell is in the sanctuary district? Well, the district is the quote unquote undesirables, the people that like needed like Medicaid or Medicare, like the people who were unemployed and had to go down to the office to try to get some employment. And they, people who like were not able to make ends meet. So they threw everybody in this one district. Like if you were below a certain economic level, and if you needed any type of assistance, you were thrown into a sanctuary district
Mhm.
where people had zero opportunity to find work. They people blamed them for being lazy, but there was no work to be had. People blamed them for being shiftless, but there was no way to produce your own food or get the things that you needed. So, it created this whole horrible ecosystem, right? As one would expect. And Dax gets thrown into like this really posh area, like downtown. She's like on the street, it acts like she got attacked and she's saved, like the pretty white woman, right?
Mhm.
She automatically fits into the upper crust society that was going on there. She just told the dude that she was attacked in some random attack. He just takes her in, takes her to get like buys her new clothes, introduces her to all his friends. They're at a swanky cocktail party and shit. I'm like what? She's like living the life of Riley, and good old Dax is of course trying to get back to her friends, but it shows like in really stark contrast how we are growing into the society of the haves and the have-nots again, where this complete erosion of the middle class that's happening in the country. And this addressed this in 1990 something, we're talking it's 2026, and we can see how easily a sanctuary district can be made reality.
The two brown dudes.
Uh-huh. Go
Yeah.
ahead, finish the thought.
The two brown dudes ended up in the ghetto. The
Right.
pretty white woman ended up with society's so-called best.
Yeah.
So-called
and
best.
and what happens is that the Bell riots happen because people in these ghettos said, like, look, enough is enough. But it didn't happen as a riot, and as we see so many times, like, things get misinterpreted in the media, or the powers that be stir the pot in a negative way, and you got a tinderbox and things get lit, set off. But these people had had enough of being abused and not being listened to and not being heard. And when they tried to state their case in a calm way and appeal to people's their higher, better selves, they were ignored. And then then their words were misinterpreted, just like people do in the media now. And they were framed as these radicals, these irrational radicals, when there was really just families and children and people trying to eat and trying to live, which is how we see it happen so many times today. So I love this episode I've always loved this episode because it works on so many levels, because they show the racial inequities in there, but it's not just about the race. And like, I think that if Dr. Martin Luther King had survived and hadn't been assassinated, and I think if Malcolm X hadn't been assassinated, because we know that the two of them were starting to work on the Poor People's Campaign together, and they were looking at the issue of economics and realizing that our divisions in this country have nothing to do with race. Race is the vehicle, but it's really about the economics, right? I think if they had been alive to see this episode, they both would have been like loving it. I think they, personally, because this is exactly what they're talking about in here.
I agree. I totally agree because it was about class.
Yeah,
Because it looked like it was just as many white people in this ghetto as it was.
exactly. It was totally mixed,
Yeah,
right? Like
it, it was about class.
which is like our society today. Like, people try to act like all Black people are on some type of public assistance, and I'm like, and and like in Reaganomics and shit, they tried to blame the entire Black population for the crappy the crappy economic situation that was going on. It's like, look, shorty, we by the numbers we can't make that not that much. By the numbers, there are far more white people
Yeah,
getting a handout from from the
like them was like
government.
10% of the population. Okay, so don't even
Right.
try it. So
Right, but it's a myth that people easily believe.
of course they do because that's
Yeah.
what they want to believe.
Yeah.
That pleases their palate
Yeah.
to believe that. So
Hmm.
you know.
Yeah. So that's my second one.
Well, I have one. This is probably going to be okay. Balance of Terror. I love
Ooh.
Balance of Terror. It's one of my favorite episodes. Season 1, episode 14. Whereas humans lays eyes on Romulans for the first time, and they bear a striking resemblance to Spock.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a guy, Lieutenant Stiles, who's the navigator. Something in his history where the Romulans, it was, went back a generation or two, where the Romulans killed his family or somebody in his family. I'm not, but he had something, of course, against the Romulans. So when when they showed the Romulans, he almost broke his neck. Spock, I think he got a crimp in his neck looking at Spock. And Spock was cool and everything, because didn't nothing bother him and everything. He said, okay, well, they may be an offshoot of us, but whatever. So, Kirk had to tell. I remember him he was walking on the bridge because this Styles had kept just making little passive aggressive remarks or little bullshit stuff, aimed at Spock. So he got his neck all turned around like the poor child in The Exorcist trying to stare Spock down. And so Kirk walks up.
Not The Exorcist.
The Exorcist, you remember his head? Well, that's where his head kept going around looking at Spock over there. Because he's a navigator. He's sitting next to Sulu, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So Kirk walks past him because he had said something smart, something real outrageous and prejudice, and Kirk walks past and he taps on his console and he says, leave your prejudice. Don't bring your prejudice on the bridge. They are not allowed on the bridge. Leave them where they are.
He said, leave your prejudices behind. There's no room for them on the bridge. Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what I have wrote down. Okay. He did. And I remember, thank you so much. And I remember him tapping the console and saying that to him, leave your prejudice behind. We have no, after Styles was doing the contortion act on the Spock skin, and Spock didn't let him. And in fact, Spock wound up saving his ass later on in the episode.
Right. Because that was the narrative, like often, to prove like, oh, those people are okay, because in the end they'll end up saving whoever was like the one with the funky attitude to begin with, and then they go, oh, I guess you're okay.
So Reagan got his ass saved by the man that he was messing with. I called him Reagan. That was the girl's name in The Exorcist, Y'all, her name was Reagan, and she was a contortionist. So.
Her name was Reagan, and she was a contortionist.
It was.
Oh, you took me out with that.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I remember that episode. I really liked that part too. I mean, like, and see, again, we're talking about season 1. So season 1. So don't come at me talking about, oh, Discovery, blah, 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 blah. Oh, Starfleet Academy, blah, 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 blah. Like, shut your trap. Shut it. Shut your trap, because I'm telling you right now, this is baked into our DNA.
That's right.
And from its inception, because Gene Roddenberry wasn't having none of it.
That's right. There you go.
Oh my God, that's a good one too. I really enjoyed that one. I'm gonna go to my next one, and this one I really liked, although it's not one that people talk about. Well, some people do, but not one that you hear all the time about, because it was a little, they tried. And I'm going to call, they tried really hard. It's The Outcast, and it's from Next Generation, season 5, episode 13. And this is when Riker falls in love with Soren, who's a member of an androgynous race known as the Janai. And Soren really wants to be a woman, wants to be female. And Riker, so this was the writers in TNG trying to look at trans world and trying to see things a little bit differently with sexuality and stuff, and who, not just, your sexual identity, not, and I really, when this came out, this was a really revolutionary episode when it came out. I mean, I think that a lot of things that made a difference to us when we were watching it, like, we judge it pretty harshly these days because we're looking through the lens of today, but we wouldn't be able to look at it the way through the lens of today without these stepping stones,
Mhm.
right? Like all the stuff that the episodes that you're talking about from um, TOS, those were the stepping stones to
Mhm.
get us to the episodes that we could talk about in TNG and in DS9 and in Voyager. You know what I'm saying? Like, without them, we wouldn't have had a discovery,
No, I
you
remember
know?
Patrick Stewart was on Arsenio Hall,
Hmm.
just before this was broadcast,
Uh-huh.
and he said, "Oh, tell us about." Arsenio says, "You got an episode coming out. You got an episode. It's the gay episode, right?" You know.
Mm.
So Patrick was like, "Well, we're not calling it that, but it alludes to that."
Hmm.
So it was a real interesting conversation between the two of them.
Yeah. So yeah, it was like, so it was those writers' attempt at looking at homosexuality um by inverting it for the
Mhm.
audience.
Mhm.
A
Mhm. They
really
did.
standard Star Trek trope,
Mhm.
is like,
Mhm.
take the thing that's the prejudice and make it, the opposite, and so and I thought that was really cool. Like, I mean, when I was watching it, I mean, I was a young person, and it made an impact on me. Like, I was pretty cool already, so I'm just saying, like, I wasn't tripping over somebody being gay, like, ever in my life, like, because I was, like, raised by a bunch of gay folks. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, but I was appreciative of my show taking a stab at it, and I was also appreciative of how seriously the cast took the material, how they played it. Jonathan Frakes was deeply in love, you know, with Soren, and this Soren person, you felt their pain. It's like, as this person felt and identified as a woman, and it, like, again, this is why I say, like, they tried, because now we have more vocabulary to have these conversations now than we had then. I can see it not just as, um, I see it more about your sexual identity, as opposed to just simply loving somebody of the same sex.
Mhm. Mhm. Well, they also it wasn't one of our episodes. The one where they first introduced us to the trill.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, and the trill came back as okay. Beverly had feelings for the trill, for the actual trill
That's right.
entity, and last time it came back as a woman,
That's right. The
as a
host,
as a
the ho-
yeah,
the
the host.
host, the host passed away. Beverly fell in love with the man,
Mhm. Mhm.
and who was the Trill host. I
Mhm.
forget what that episode is. And then that host passed away,
Mhm.
died, and then came back, and then the Trill was reassigned to a new host,
Mhm.
and it was a woman. And Beverly was like, I can't do it, shorty.
No.
I cannot do it. And they were saying, I think they were still trying to experiment with the whole idea of the
Mhm.
Trill anyway at that point, because they were,
Yeah, 'cause they look
they were
different.
like, yeah, they look different and everything, but also, like, the concept in that episode was like, I am the same person. Whereas when we
Mhm.
meet the Trill later, they're not the same person. They have a lot of the memories, like, that's more clearly defined. But in the TNG episode, she was like, no, it's me. I'm the same person. I got the same consciousness, which I still think is a really interesting
Who you
concept
are
to
on the
look at.
inside. Who you are
Right, who
on
you are
the
on the
inside.
inside. Right.
Mhm.
And how much does that make a difference? That was one that I thought I liked that episode a lot. I'm glad you brought it up because like they really had an honest conversation, because
Mhm.
and it seemed like in Trekdom you would want it to turn out okay, like okay, Beverly, do the thing and fall in love with the person. And Beverly's like, no, shorty.
No,
No, it makes a difference, like her sexual orientation was not geared to a woman. Like no matter what, she was in love with that person, but she was not going to be able to handle that.
because they put the trill, the actual trill, into Riker too.
Oh yeah,
Remember
that's right.
Riker
Yeah.
was the host
Uh-huh.
at one point, and she was
Yeah.
kind of nervous about that, and
Mm-hmm.
so it was.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, Trek, okay, all right,
You know,
I see you.
I see you. I see you trying.
Mm-hmm.
I can
Mm-hmm.
give props that people tried, like it, and like I said, like some of these episodes you might look at them as a swing and a miss, but I think there's more, more connections and than misses in a lot of times,
Mm-hmm.
but those two particular episodes I
Mm-hmm.
feel bear watching.
They do also, and this was Swift. It has something to do with Dax when Dax meets her Klingon brothers, and she says he goes
Oh
to he
yeah.
says, oh, he says, Curzon, my
Hmm.
friend Curzon. She say, I'm Dax now. He says, Dax, my friend. Didn't miss a beat.
No, didn't miss a beat. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so
Hmm.
that was deep too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Fran, let's do one more from you quickly and one more from me quickly.
Okay, okay, I'm gonna go with Plato's Stepchildren, season 3, episode 10. And no, not the kiss. Okay. I'm not gonna deal with the kiss. Okay, the so-called kiss. I'm not gonna deal with that. I'm gonna deal with the way they treated the little person.
Mm,
And he was sitting there and he was lamenting to Kirk, they treat me like crap and so, because of my size, And Kirk says to him, I'm paraphrasing, well, back on Earth, it's not like that. People are treated equally
mhm,
regardless of their size. You wouldn't be treated any different because of your size. We don't do that on Earth, which I thought was, that's a different, it's a superficial thing, but it's still a different thing that they said we were finally gotten equal because,
mhm.
he can't help that he's a little man. He
Right,
can't help that he's a little man, but he shouldn't be treated like that because he is a little man,
right,
you know.
right.
So, but
Yeah,
they treated him like crap,
right,
and Kurt, listened to him, let him vent, and told him, no uncertain terms, you would not be treated like that on Earth. Everybody's
right.
treated the same, regardless
So,
of their size.
so again, baked into our DNA, you know, is the concept that everybody is treated fairly.
Mm-hmm. 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 Mm-hmm.
Everybody is given respect.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Hmm. I like that one too. Well, I'll throw in for my quick one. Um, Again, TNG. I have an honorable mention, but it's a much, well, not an honorable mention. I have another one that I from DS9 that I truly, truly love, but it's just too long of a discussion. I'll tell you about that later. But we can do a whole show on that one
Okay.
episode.
All right.
So, like, another one that I love and appreciate, that I felt was particularly woke, in a beautiful way, was I Borg, from TNG episode, it's season 5, episode 23. When we meet Hugh, the Enterprise rescues this young wounded Borg, and he then learns to understand himself as an individual. And Guinan, of course, and Picard, of course, have serious misgivings and issues about it, but then they learn to look at him as an individual, and he make the Borg. Hugh makes friends with Geordi and with
Well,
Dr. Crusher, right, of course. And I just thought, like, that episode, I feel like it just exemplifies how I try to go through the world often, which is, let me look at you as an individual, and try to find some way to relate with you, you
Mhm.
know. Um, and I just thought that that was a beautiful. They did that beautifully in that episode, showing how that could work, how that could happen.
Mhm. And he made friends because they took him as who he was. He was, and then when he finally said "I," you're like, "Oh,
Mhm.
okay, okay, we see
Right,
you." You know.
right. And it's another conversation about um sentient life, right? And
Mhm.
respecting the rights of individual sentient life. And,
Mhm.
and again, like it goes back to what I was saying before, like they had a choice that they could, for lack of a better phrase, dehumanize this Borg,
Mhm. Mhm.
which is what they wanted to do because they were intending to use him as a bioweapon,
Mhm.
you
Give him a
know.
virus. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yep.
hmm you know, but they really had to look at him as an individual as he was becoming an individual.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's my list there. That's the just little interesting ones that I don't think would normally come up in conversation all the time.
Mhm. Mhm.
That I thought were some good examples of that. What about you, Fran? You have a honorable mention?
No, I don't. I didn't want. I didn't. I didn't want to. Cause. Oh, okay. I didn't want to bullhog the place, but
Well, yeah, same.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I no. I pretty much. I don't have any more. I only did the ones that I came out with.
Well, I don't need to say a lot about this one, but I'll just want to mention it that it is on my list. And one of my all-time favorite Trek episodes as well, and that's Far Beyond the Stars.
Oh yeah.
Um, Deep
Oh.
Space Nine episodes, season 6, episode 13. And if you have not watched Far Beyond the Stars, it will speak for itself. It does not need Tamia Harper to speak for it. if
I
you have, if you have watched it already, you already know.
I I I have this love, not so much love for this episode because it hits really close to home for me
Mm-hmm.
because of my generation. And I've said this on the show before. As a child, around 5 or 6 or something like that, we were getting on the bus, me and my guardian, and she said to me, in all seriousness, when you get on the bus, go to the back of the bus.
Mm-hmm.
So see, I wasn't that far. My uncle did a sit-in here at one of the stores but it's that episode is really close to me, and it brings out feelings of being less than,
Mm-hmm.
so I
Mm-hmm.
that's my relationship. I think it's a brilliant episode. Don't get
Mm-hmm.
me wrong, it is a brilliant episode, and we could talk about this the whole show.
Yep.
However, I have I'm too close to it. Let's put it
I
that.
get that. I get that. Even for those of us like who didn't experience having to sit in the back of the bus, it's
Mhm,
a difficult episode to to sit with.
mhm,
Like when you watch that episode, you just got to turn every damn thing off afterwards and just sit
mhm,
for a nice minute, and absorb, but I think it's the crux of, I know it's not an original, I know it's later Trek in the scheme of things, it's still considered legacy Trek, but it's not TOS and it's not as early as TNG. But, um, you talked about something being baked into our DNA. And
mhm,
then you find all these people who profess to love Deep Space Nine so much. Um, I've seen like people on the cruise saying they love Deep Space Nine wearing a MAGA hat, and I'm like, yeah, what exactly do you love about Deep Space Nine? Like, what show are you watching? What are you seeing in this show? What are you not seeing?
Hmm.
in this show. Like it blows my mind. But I just think that the more we talk about it, the more we reclaim our words.
That's
The
right.
more, I don't run from bullies. And bullies want to like try to call you out your name. They take something about you and they try to turn it into a negative,
Mhm.
something that's beautiful and positive. And they get power when we let them. When we start making excuses, when we start explaining, when we start justifying, why we are or for whatever,
Who we
uh-uh.
are.
Right, who we are, what we're about. Like, no, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. So I just thought it would be fun to talk about this stuff on our show because I'll be woke all damn day,
Hmm.
24/7,
Tell me about it.
365.
Tell me.
And I don't care. You can call me woke to my face. I do not care. Like what am I gonna do? Die?
Just
Ooh, no,
just
you called me
capitalize
woke.
it. Make it. We say capitalize for you all that are young. Uppercase W.
So I mean, it's our word. We love it. It's not going nowhere,
Mm.
and we're not going nowhere.
That's right.
I mean, that's it. WOKE.
Woke, 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 woke.
Wokety woke
Woke,
woke.
woke, woke, woke,
Woke
woke.
woke wokety woke and happy and joyous and free.
That's right. Okay. I.
Can't
I
take that
see.
away from me.
That's
So if you I'm glad I got to have this conversation with you, Fran. Do you have any final parting thoughts?
um. You know, I'm kind of speechless because I don't know. We speak these people, probably people who didn't really look at Star Trek, saying that Star Trek is turned woke. You evidently didn't watch Star Trek,
Mhm.
so because you don't know what the heck you're talking about. And I just want to put. I mean, what the- Star Trek? As I said, I don't know if I said it on camera. I mean, I don't know if I said it on here, but Star Trek been pissing off bigots since 1966. Okay.
You did. You started off with
I
that, and that's
did.
a
Okay,
good
I'm
way
waiting.
to end it up. It's a
Yeah,
good way to bring it back around,
that's right. That's right. Circle
Star Trek,
around. Circle back.
pissing off bigots since 1966. That's going
Yes.
to be the new shirt. Well, y'all, I want to thank everybody for listening out there. Thanks for listening to the Sci-Fi Sisters podcast. We really appreciate you. During the 60th anniversary of Star Trek, we're honored to continue celebrating the franchise we love and to have been named 2025 Best All-Around Star Trek Podcast by Trek Movie. Whoop, whoop. So join us, please, on Patreon at patreon.com/sci-fi sisters and be part of the mothership and join the conversation on the Sci-Fi Sisters Book Club on Facebook. Watch our interviews, live shows, and our infamous Top 10 series on YouTube at Sci-Fi Sisters Inc. And you guys know we're part of the Trek Geeks Network, and the Trek Geeks Network's presenting sponsor is Fansets. So please grab pins and memorabilia from your favorite franchises at fansets.com and use the code Trek Geeks, all caps, for 10% off. After listening to this podcast, please rate us and write a review. We just might blah, 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 blah. We just may read it
That's right.
on an upcoming episode. And of course, I have to give a shout out to the baddest associate producers in any known galaxy. And we have a new one, Chris Garris, Stephanie Baker, Sailor Marge, and Karen Dramera. We love you all and thank you for the work that you do on our behalf. And kids, we're out of here. Thanks for sticking around and hanging out. And also, wokety woke, 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 woke. Peace, love, and hair grease. Hey, everybody. Sister Tamia here with the shorty shout outs for this month. We'd like to thank the following patrons for all your support. Anne Bradley, L.M., Dave A. Gregory, Eve England, David Balston, Karen Dramera, Sue K., Mohammed Noor, Susan V. Gruner, Anna Post, Heather and Greg, Chris Garris, T. Alexander, Kim McLean, Mark R.G., Kat, Anthony Aponte, Frankie Dawn Engelbert, Jay-Z, Pranakasha, JKH, Eric, Lamaya Lancaster, Donna S. Runyon, Allie Ashmead, B. No, Tara, Cleo Townsend, Sandra Aponte, Lenny, Oils Galore, Michael Stakem, Allison Leach Hyde, Mike and Kristen Holton, Ayana May Tom, Casey Shafsky, Brad DeMag, Mike Nauer, Cassandra Gerard, Bruce McMillan, L.J., Tara Jefferson, Bernadette Garcia Galvez, Rhonda G., Rita Poussant Nethersole, Bill Erickson, Zakia Graham, Linda Anderegg, Jeffrey Cochran, Old Klein, Peter Heisler, Olga Kravchuk, TJ Jackson Bay, Liza Albright, Kalia Zawaki, Stephanie Baker, Sailor Marge, Stephanie Dole, Jamal Taylor, and Scott Jensen. Thank you all so much for your support. We love you.